Hello everyone. Today I'm going to do a little network primer plus what I'm going to show you is how to expand the number of ports on your router so you can plug more devices in, and quite possibly how to speed up the speed of your network, at least your local area network that is physically connected by wires. Now here we have a typical router. This is a Netgear WNR 2000 version 3, and I've plugged 4 devices into the LAN port, so there's no LAN ports left for me to plug the next device in. So if I want to add another server or another laptop and I want to physically connect it by wire, I can't, okay? But there is a workaround on this. Now, the workaround on this is to add a switch. If you can see, this switch has 8 ports in it, okay? And another nice thing you can do when doing this is that this router here only has 100 megabit LAN ports on it. So each one of these LAN ports is 100 megabits. So basically anything talking through this router can't talk any quicker than 100 megabits per second. But most devices nowadays are gigabit capable. In other words, they're able to go 10 times faster than what this router can actually give them, pass data to them through. So what the best way to solve this problem, and even if you don't have this problem, if you want to speed things up on your wired network by a factor of 10, is to buy a gigabit switch. Okay, and what this switch is auto switching, auto sensing, has auto switching, auto sensing ports. What that means is that anything you plug into them, these ports, will automatically go the speed of the other side. So say this is a gigabit switch and this is a 100 megabit router. It's going to downgrade that port to 100 megabits to the router. Okay, now most routers, they don't even get, maybe they get 20, maybe 30, maybe 50 megabits per second from the internet. So at 100 megabits, they're plenty fast enough. These ports are plenty fast enough to pass that speed over to this router. So here's what I mean. What you do is you take one of these ports and plug it into your switch. Now, as you can see, that makes that light turn on, but basically tells you the port is alive. Now, what happens when you do that is all the data from this switch is passed to this switch at 100 megabits per second, right? Okay, but this is a gigabit switch. So all these devices that are plugged into your switch, into your router, are running at 100 megabits because that's a 100 megabit switch port on the back of this router, okay? But this is a gigabit switch. So if you plug these devices into the back of this switch instead of the router, remember, the router is already plugged into your switch at the highest speed that it can go anyway. And what happens is that now everything from this router goes to this switch and is shared with all these ports. Now it can't share the data any quicker than 100 megabits from the internet. Okay, so but like I said, most routers are not connecting to the internet at 100 megabits. So it doesn't matter. It's plenty fast enough for the internet. Now if you have a faster than 100 megabit per second internet connection, well, goody for you. You've got a heck of a fast connection. And at that point, this router is not adequate anyway. You'd want a gigabit router. So next step. Once you've plugged everything in, see, now I have the LAN port, the internet port populated going to my modem, and the LAN port going from here, any one of these ports will do, to the switch. And then I plug all my devices into that switch, which is a gigabit. What that means is that all the devices plugged into this switch will be talking to each other at a gigabit per second, right? So you've maximized their LAN speed. So when you're transferring files between your laptop and another laptop, or watching video that you've stored on one network media device, whatever, if they all have a gigabit port in them and they're plugged into this gigabit switch, they're all talking to each other at 1 gigabit, maximum speed they can talk to. Now, they will not be able to talk to the internet any quicker than this router is going to give them data. Okay, so currently this router has a 100 megabit output port, so if you have a quicker than that internet connection, you shouldn't be using this router anyway. You should get yourself a gigabit router that's capable of handling the network speed you have. But right now, most people don't have that kind of speed on their internet. Again, if you have a faster connection than 100 megabits to the internet, you're a very lucky person, number one. Number two, this router is not the correct router for that. So, what we've done is we've added an 8-port switch, which gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ports. Actually 7, because one of them has to be populated by our connection to the router. And we've also increased the speed of the LAN, local area network, that's wired connectors, that has a wired connection to it, to 1 gigabit, because this switch is 1 gigabit. So, there's my solution to that problem. It also has the bonus of making your network much quicker and optimizing the network connections that you have that are gigabit connections. Plus, like I said, it's a switch and it's auto sensing, so it will step down the 100 megabit connection to that speed so it can connect to your router. Okay, so there's how you, number one, expand your ports to your router by adding 8 ports, actually 7 because you're populating one to connect the router to it, and you increase the speed of your wired network from 100 megabits to 1 gigabit by buying a 1 gigabit switch. I'll put a link for the gigabit switch. I'll put a link for a 100 megabit switch if you don't need it. The 100 megabit switch obviously is cheaper than the 1 gigabit switch, but you know, hey, go all the way and buy yourself a gigabit switch for the extra $10, $20 that it costs. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for watching.